Support for this podcast comes from Is Business Broken, a podcast from BU's Meirotra Institute that explores questions like, why are executives paid so much? Do they deserve it? Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Darryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Comment. Several wildfires have devastated communities around the country over the last decade, and that's occurring more frequently. Los Angeles residents just experienced one of the most destructive wildfires in California's history back in January. Massachusetts also had a historic wildfire season.
Massachusetts now weeks into battling what's being called an unprecedented fire event.
Governor Maura Healey saying that the amount of fires that the state saw in October was 1,200% higher than what's typical.
As these catastrophic events raise concerns here and throughout the country, research right here in Massachusetts, in Worcester, aims to help prevent future catastrophes. The Fire Protection Engineering Department at Worcester Polytechnic Institute has one of the leading fire research labs in the country. So a couple weeks ago, I got in the car. We're driving to the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and we're actually going to see an experiment that will help us understand how wildfires spread. The head of the fire engineering department, Albert Simeoni, met with me.
Nice to meet you.
How you doing, Darryl?
Hi.
Nice
to meet you too.
Albert's a big deal. He has an office decorated with framed diplomas, photos with celebrities, and 3 different firefighting helmets. He's very proud of them. Because Albert takes his work on wildfires personally, he told me about a life-changing experience driving through Corsica, France.
I remember being with my family. We were driving back from our summer place, which was in the mountains, very forested areas, looking a little bit like Colorado, you know. And while we are driving, it's at night, and we see fires in the mountains everywhere. We counted 50 fires over a 50, 60-mile distance, you know. And my parents were not speaking anymore in the car. My sister was crying. I was very upset, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do wildfires for my research.
But Albert didn't stop at academic research. He became a firefighter while completing his PhD in mechanical engineering.
I wanted to really have the experience, not just manage it from afar. My first fire, I was like young and fit and doing a lot of sport, and I inhaled too much smoke. I had to be taken off of the fire, and I lay down on the road because I couldn't take it anymore.
Albert grew animated as he told me about another terrifying memory.
I was trapped in the flames with my crew and heard my crew screaming for help, and I couldn't help them because I was crawling. My legs were not intoxication from the smoke holding me, you know, and I couldn't do anything about it, and I didn't know if I would get through.
Fortunately, his boss heard the screams and sent a team to rescue them.
So we were having flames above us, but we were able to crawl our way back until somebody pulled us, you know. What saved our lives is that we were at the initiation of the phenomenon. If you're halfway up the canyon, people die.
And people did. 2 people died 1 year later in that same spot where Albert was trapped. So the fire research Albert conducts at this massive lab in Worcester is about life or death for him.
So here you enter the largest lab in any university in the United States, you know. To have bigger, largest fire lab, yes, correct.
The lab could be a garage that fits maybe 8 cars. I mean, they've burned an entire train car in here before. I learned wildfires can be especially dangerous if they happen in Massachusetts because a lot of people live close to forested areas.
The higher density is not in California. It's in the Northeast. So we are in the situation of it's unlikely to happen. But if it happens, it can be catastrophic.
I got to watch a few experiments in the lab. In the first experiment, the team wants to see how bad wildfires can get under certain conditions and how to stop them. Albert shows me a wind tunnel, a massive steel box big enough that you can stand in it. On the far right side, there's 2 large fans, which will mimic wind. Essentially, the researchers light things on fire, throw them in the box, turn on the fans, and study what happens. Today, it's pine needles.
Okay, so the wind is on, and now you can see the flames lean in.
The pine needles start to break apart. Hot embers fly to the other side of the wind tunnel.
We're looking at how many particles, flying embers, are produced, what's their size, what their temperature, how far they go. You have hundreds and thousands of particles generated by just a small shrub. You multiply that by millions in wildfires and you can have an idea of the amount of particles which are generated and transported by the wind.
It's beautiful, but it'll kill you. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
Yes.
Wow.
They're trying to figure out how to prevent fires from breaking out and how to quickly stop them if they do. They also recommend policies to officials responsible for controlled burns and for us, residents who have a lot on the line if a fire does break out.
Of course, we love to play with matches in a safe environment. That's a lot of fun, but we do that with a mission. We really want to help society. We really want people not to lose everything they're built in their life. We don't want them to lose their life, or we don't want their health to be affected.
Now, we also have to talk about climate change when it comes to wildfires. Our changing weather conditions create a whiplash effect that goes from extreme drought to heavy rains. This can be a problem. Check it out. There's been a lot more rain than usual over the last couple years in California, so a lot more grass grew. Then, drought conditions dried out that grass, which provided more fuel for wildfires.
Now you have fires which can start very easily. I remember a year when there was drought in Utah and a guy playing golf ignited a fire, making sparks.
Wow.
A guy cycling with his pedal hitting a rock started a fire. And it was so dry that he tried to stop it. Not his fault, right? It's really an accident. He tried to stop it and it went out of control.
Another issue, our growing suburbs. Albert says a majority of our fire codes responded to historic fires in cities. Those same codes don't really apply to the suburbs. And it's a lot easier to control one apartment that's on fire than an entire street of houses.
And then you're reaching a threshold where everything we put in place to make our city safe doesn't work anymore because the fire is too big.
Albert's research focuses on solutions for how we live today. They're still working to answer big questions like, how should we design buildings? What materials do we use? What plants are safest to grow around your house? And when it comes to policy, how should state officials conduct controlled burns? They do have one piece of advice for us, though. Please, rake your leaves and clean your gutters.
We see the impact on people, that's for us, that's really our driver is we want to be useful to this problem and bring solutions to this problem.
That's Professor Albert Simeoni, Head of Fire Protection Engineering at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common, and thank you to WPI. This episode was produced by Steph Brown. The Common is produced by myself and Franny Monahan. It's mixed by Marquise Neal, and it's edited by Yasmin Hammer. And from the newsroom of WBUR, I'm your host, Darryl C. Murphy. I'll talk to you next week.